Paladin just released inside of Korea, and with that, of course, came the support update, which was long awaited. Is it good? Is it bad? And of course, every support now got a better DPS spec. I am a bit on the fence about this term, but you know, we'll see about that. So first of all, guys, we're going to be talking, of course, about all the supports, but I will have to say one thing. I do not and have never touched a single Paladin in my life. So I will show you all the changes, but I cannot really give my opinion or whatever about things that are happening to Paladin. You can read yourself and, of course, draw your own conclusions in the comment section down below. But I play Bard and I played Artist. I mainly Bard because I main this class till the death. It's just so fun. Alright, so first of all, systematic changes. First of all, drops of ether. It now generates 2 ethers instead of one for you and one for your party members, which is a bit interesting because, you know, does it still spawn at the same rate? We do not know. And what really is the reason that we both get an ether? I would rather just want it party-wide than just, you know, for one person, but, you know, we'll see how this is gonna go. But I guess definitely it is a buff, but yeah, I don't really see the purpose for giving it to us as well. But Awakening up next, this one got a big change. So now Legendary got the full effect of the old Relic engraving. So normally if you went up to Relic artifact, you got up to 4 times more Awakenings, but that's now standard in Legendary. But now we get with Relic a 6% cooldown. So sadly, I did not buy this book, and it seems very strong, but it was already expensive anyway. So for now, you know, 6% cooldown, it's pretty decent. You know, are we maybe using one more Awakening fights? That's maybe going to be the case, but on sheet, I don't know if 6% is going to be worth it spending that amount of gold. But up next, we have ourselves Explosive Expert. This one's actually very interesting. So, normally went up that you get yourself 4 extra bombs at Relic. That is now again at Legendary. And now we have ourselves a 20% chance not to consume the item. So, what is interesting about this? This doesn't say that we have 20% chance to not lose, like, a usage on the bar. But it's just to save consumables. Is that okay? Is that worth getting Ancient for? Maybe, if it's cheap, but I don't see that this is going to be a big game changer as well. So those are all the support changes for the engravings. The only good one, in my opinion, is Awakening. I guess it is good that you can never pick up a DPS ball anymore of drops of ether. I think that's, of course, probably one of the bigger things as well. So that's pretty nice. But next up, AP buffs. They have been changed. So all AP buffs now are para-immune, not push immune. Keep in mind, para-immune means it's, of course, like the little staggers that bosses sometimes do, like a whoo or like a knockback a little bit, you know, like you just move like half an inch. That is now not canceling your buffs anymore. Bards, rejoy! We can finally press our buffs in peace, as long as we know we don't get knocked up, which is awesome. So AP buffs now as well have a scaling with level 14, which is pretty cool. And there's some changes to the tripods as well for every single class. So what you just have to know is now your buff needs to go to level 14, and it's a little bit less of a buff than it was before, but it scales a lot better now with honing. So you're gonna see that the rats maybe lose a little bit of damage, but the people that main support are actually gaining damage from their contributions of their own AP, which is very nice. So actually, it says, like it says over here, effectively, honing is now more efficient on support, as your base AP contributes to a much larger percentage of the effectiveness of your buffs than it did before. So like I said, this just simply means that if you are a better geared support, you are buffing more than you did before, and if you're a rat, you're buffing less, and that is how it should be. So up next, we have ourselves an update to the icons. We do not know if this is from compressed buffs only, or is this just now a general thing. It looked pretty cool, but we see that's now all the same icons for every support, and Bard gets a yellow one for some reason. But pretty cool, and it's nice to see that people can now just understand, like, okay, if it's a purple thingy, it's the T-scale. If it's blue, it's T-scale damage. You know, if it's red, it's the AP buff. So they can be like, oh, maybe I need to wait until that purple icon is there before I use my hyper. You know, I think that's pretty cool. It's not like you have to remember the icons anymore from every single support, which is very nice. So now they have, of course, added the new UI for the party finder for supports, which is interesting. And if they are DPS, then this little plus icon goes away. So that is all the general changes. Already quite a lot of information, so sorry about that. But up next, guys, we're going to be talking about Bard. Like I said, this is the one I will go most in depth in, and Paladin is the one I'll go least in depth in. So first of all, meter gain has changed for a lot of skills, and you're going to be looking like, okay, so what does this technically mean? So we will learn on later on that you can now solo brand with Sonatina. So we are dropping one skill, which is going to be our harp. It's probably going to be dropped, and if we look then what is going to be our replacement, it is going to be probably rhythm buckshot. So this of course was our extra counter some bards were taking when they were really inexperienced and they didn't know how to use Prelude or Storm to counter. This is a very fast counter, and it gained 300% more meter. So that means that it now does 800 more meter because, you know, we're replacing a skill. So let's take a look at the other skills, of course, because the other skills we were using from this list has been adjusted is Prelude Storm and Sonatina. So Sonatina loses around 100, and you can see Prelude Storm loses around 400 meter. So 500 meter has been lost, but we gain 630. So by gaining Rhythm Buckshot, losing Harp, of course Harp as well regenerator meter. So I think these changes are just so because people, the devs probably know, okay, they're probably gonna run Rhythm Buckshot, so they actually have a counter. That's kind of what they're trying to do with this change, because you see Stigma, which would be a staple of using to generate meter, has been nerfed from 1200 to 600 because they didn't want us to get more meter, and they did the same thing to Soundaholic, which went from 1500 to 840. This is a little bit weirder. They have to do some testing, but so then what they just did is like the other options they had for meter gain, because we are losing a skill for branding and we can get a meter gain skill. They lowered these, and then they gave us Rhythm Buckshot as a replacement for that lost meter, and they just make us get an extra counter. So it makes Bard more volatile in the way of that, okay, it still has the same meter gen, even if it loses a skill to use for branding alone, and it gains a counter. So it's pretty nice. We maybe will lose a little bit or gain a little bit of meter, but it's going to be around the same, and it's not going to be like, oh, we gain a full skill of meter, which would have been absolutely amazing, but maybe a bit too broken. So up next, of course, solo branding right now is there, and personal mana regen for Bard has been improved a lot, potentially able to drop the max MP, but we don't really know currently just yet. Koreans are a bit slow on this, sadly. So up next is going to be a new stacking skill called Perfect Harmony. What you just have to think about is there is right now, you're going to get yourself extra stacks from using your Z buff, and then there's going to be another new ability you can use after Z buff, which is called the Major Coda or Minor Coda, and that will give you some stacks, and these stacks are literally just giving you cooldown reduction and mana refund to normal skills. So what's actually interesting about this is going to give you then a 10% cooldown reduction on meter gen skills, but as well 10% on like your brand and stuff like that as well. So we have to keep in mind that technically, if we're cycling correctly, we get around a 5 to probably 10% cooldown reduction just in general, because we do not actually have to use that many skills to generate bars, which I think is pretty cool. So that is going to be added, and that of course is a little bit more explained here. The tier 4 and alignment node is going to be new Major Coda or Minor Coda. Technically what it just does, it gives you either a little bit more of a damage buff, or it gives you a refund of the bar used. I don't know why this was a refund of the bar used and not just a heal option, like even a tiny one or a shield, because you will see later on that Paladin actually gains a shield as his minor coda. But yeah, it's nice that Bard is going to be just the ultimate buffer, because it gained another 20% of your Serenade of Courage base effect as a buff, which I think is pretty cool. So that technically is just literally a 1.2% times buff of Serenade of Courage, but it says base effect, so not probably anything to do with spec or anything like that, but still it's a good extra buff. And otherwise refunds, I don't see a single situation where you wouldn't want to refund, unless it's maybe just before like a phase transition you use a buff and you're like, oh, I messed up, let's just get myself a little bit of bar back. But I will not see us using minor coda for a lot. But it could be good. We will have to do some testing, because of course getting 50% back from your triple damage buff is maybe very good, but yeah, we'll have to see. I think just probably damage buff is going to be better. So this is my second time recording this, because I think this needs a bit of a better talk. So we've now seen most of the support changes, but what about DPS? So on paper it feels like a nerf. for DPS Bard. I'm gonna be honest, but I think if we count it all together, it's actually gonna be a big buff. I'll have to test it myself. I'm like a very big DPS fanatic on Bard. But we'll see about this right now. So one of the big things, and we're going to just scroll past all of the things. If you, of course, want to read these, pause the video. Feel free to give them a little bit of a look. But we're going to go over to the big ones, which is going to be, of course, the Ark Passive, because this is going to be contributing to some things that we should know about the class. So here are all the things. We're gonna get some big buffs to our DPS skill, which is gonna be pretty cool for Awakening, and Vivian's gets a different tripod, but I don't even know if we're gonna use Vivian's because of some other changes that I will talk about in a little bit. And there we go, and this is the last part. So one big thing for DPS Bard is, and this is not noted on here, I think DPS Z Tempest, which is their biggest DPS skill, got a damage gem. If I read it correctly, how it's in the patch notes, but they didn't actually put this in here, DPS Bard got a new Z gem for Tempest, which is very, very, very OP. So this can go up to, of course, a maximum of 43% with a level 10 gem, which is very cool. One other thing that I should note for DPS Bard is heavily tuned. You can see right here, the Play For Me tripod, which was their own personal self buff for an extra additional 30%. This got changed to 20% crit rate. And you may be like, what? That means that we now lost 30% damage. Not exactly, at least this is how I read it, so I'll talk about this right now. So let's go down to the Ark Passive tree. If you guys want to read the support one, it's right here. The biggest change, of course, which we've not talked about, is that the side nodes now get a 4% brand power, both of them, and sadly a little bit of a nerf from 10-second max duration to 8 seconds, but the rest is all the same. So let's take a look at the DPS Bard tree. Alright, so first of all, this is a really big one, and I think a lot of people are brushing over this. So we now, of course, get our own personal brand, so it can stack with other bards. So a bard can play with a bard. So this is a big buff, because bards didn't be able to use to play with bards as DPS. And DPS bards love spec bard, because, of course, the big juicy buffs on their Zs gonna make them even juicier. So this already is a really big buff, okay? So we now have two different brands, which is awesome. And as well, the damage increase of Serenade of Valor, which is a Z buff, and an area on yourself and party members will be changed to increase for only you, which is a nerf for the party, because before, right now, currently, I'm able to give a triple damage buff to myself and to my team while I play DPS Bard, so they can actually get a double Z buff, which is kind of busted. But that is right now sadly removed. So this is why, because area move works on yourself. I don't know if it's maybe gonna replace Vivian's, but I don't think it is gonna be replacing it, because it just does that much damage. So that's interesting. But this right here, the buff of Heavily Tuned and Sonic Vibration increases the attack power based on the character's base attack power by 25%. So this means that besides the tripod, which we just gained 20% crit rate from, we now get 25% damage, not 30. So we are technically trading 5% attack power for 20% crit rate, which is very big, because that means we can finally move some points from crit rate to swiftness, which results into more meter gen, which results into more modes and results to more damage. And we're gonna, of course, talk about that right now, because you can see right here the big skill which we were using for DPS Bard, Tempest, is now put on its tier 2 node, but sadly the maximum amount of damage buff it gained went from 200% to 100%. They've not mentioned any damage number changes, so maybe they have adjusted this as well as a base level, but I don't think they actually changed that. So this technically means we got 100% nerf on this skill, but I don't think we have to worry too much because of these things right here. So we lost 100% damage because we went from 200% to 100%, but I don't think they actually changed anything in Maestro. Maybe we got a 12% extra damage buff. I sadly cannot double check in game if we have this. I know we get this 10% crit rate already, but I don't know if we get the 12% damage. I don't think we do. So we already could be up to 112%. Okay. I think Battle Hymn got a little bit more extra damage, but it's nothing interesting. But Rage R right now, we get 20% extra crit damage, because this this thing didn't exist before. This was like a solo chaos dungeon thing instead. So we get 20% crit damage, which is very good for Tempest again as well. So already moving the bar up a little bit. But this Tempest feels the big one. So, you know, maybe we're at 112 and now we're at 126 because we get a damage increase. Okay, so we're still missing around 75% damage. What is next? So when hitting Tempest, it restores 30 to 45% of the bubble spent. So if you use a 2-bubble buff, you get 30% back from the 2-bubble buff, which is crazy. Or if you use a triple damage buff, which is going to be the main staple, I'm pretty sure with this build now, you're going to return 1.5 bubbles from the 3. And you can easily get that back because before, around every 30 seconds-ish, you were gaining around 2 bubbles. But if we get 1.5 back, we only have to generate 1.5 bubbles. Because we get more crit chance, because of course Heavily 2 now gives us more crit chance, we can swap more Swift, so we get even more meter. So this means that instead of normally as a DPS Bard, you would be kind of spamming 2 bubble buffs, like just every time off cooldown. And sometimes if there was a longer downtime, you could go for a 3-bubble, or maybe at an Awakening or something, you could go for a 3-bubble. But now this technically means that every time you can use Tempest, it is going to be a triple bubble Tempest, which is going to be actually a very big buff and shouldn't be underestimated. This is very, 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 very good. And then even after that as well, it creates a Tempest area that deals N damage. We don't know how much this is. This could as well literally just be this 100% we're missing in the N damage. But like I said, I don't know what this is right now. I've not seen any footage of people, you know, having good enough builds to showcase what the damage actually is. But this is still very crazy, up to 4 times. So it does 3 hits 4 times. So it could do like 12 more hits, or maybe it's just weird wrong, or maybe it's just, I don't know. No, actually it's going to be based on the damage level. Never mind. So it's 1 hit 4 times based on what level you have. So this could be a lot of damage, guys. This could be a lot of damage. It literally could just make up the 100% we're missing from here. But with these refunds, with this damage increase, with the crit rate from the other things, with the 20% damage, I'm sorry, guys. We could see a #1 DPS creeping in with Lil Bardo. I'm sorry. They may be sleeping on this. I really wish I could get my hands on this in Korea. I sadly do not have access to a Korea Lost Ark account, but this is very, very big. So yeah, I'm sorry guys, I know this was a lot of yapping about DPS Bard. When it comes out, of course, I will talk about it and use it on my stream. So as a little bit of a baseline for people that do not know, on Mortem currently on my DPS Bard with, and in that run I didn't use any Etros. I had around a 75% buff uptime from the support, and as well I missed 2 modes. I was already doing 200 mil DPS currently. So I think that with a good support, with Atrophians, and with this new build, we could maybe even top into the 300 to 350 mil DPS. I think that's literally how good it's gonna be, especially on Mortem. So I'm excited, guys. I'm gonna move on to the other 2 supports. I'm sorry for yapping so much, and that the most of this video is gonna be about Bard. Because like I said, I have no clue what Peli even does mostly. So I know, of course, it has some things and there's some other things going on. But quick summary, guys, for what they've changed to Peli is that they can now keep up their aura with their abilities, which is interesting. So they can use these abilities right here to get ourselves extra meter gen. T-skill now gets 18% over 6 seconds and 10% on Z press instantly, because there's going to be another skill which you can use for Z, and it instantly gives you meter back. So this means that you can use a longer aura. But I wonder, is that even something that Paladins wanted, a longer aura? I think Paladin wanted more like you could have a faster aura, but this is now just extending the duration. Maybe this is better. I don't know. Let me know, of course, what you guys thinking about that in the comment section down below. But you can see there's a lot of stuff right now. Wrath of God got base meter regen, para armor by default. Push immune now moved to the first row, which is awesome. Heavily blessing got ourselves now para immune as well by default, which is very, very cool. Holy protection now goes to 20 for level 14, giving a 22% shield, so 2% buff as well on the DR. And the brand, of course, got increased because all the supports now have a single brand, which is very, very, very nice. Let's go to DPS. So at a first glance, it seems that the change to the Ark Passive promotes spamming skills more than before. Having more swiftness may be better than before. Like I said, this is the same thing that happened to DPS Bard. Is it seems that they are going away from needing like max crit to a little bit less crit, like maybe like a 60-40, and getting more swiftness to just do more abilities. Because that was Bard's issue as well. We didn't really have enough swiftness to do all these abilities. So now we get even more swiftness to spam a lot more. So you can see there's these other changes as well. And here we go, guys. These are, of course, the changes to support for Paladin. Like I said, I'm sorry. I really wish I had a bit more insight on Paladin and the things that have been changed. But you can see that the brand went up to a second, and also some other things we already just mentioned, of course. But I'll just scroll past it slowly. If you want to pause, read something, feel free to do it. And I'm sorry, I don't have more insight in this. 2% more DR on the Divine Protection, which is very fair. Sorry, actually, 2% more shield, not DR. And then the ult at C. So this 8% ignoring collision. So this, I think, is the same thing as that happened to DPS Bard, is that this now applies to yourself as well. Just a bit of a text change. And then we see the DPS changes. A lot of stuff that's been changed. So more attack, more damage to some other things, less preparation time, as well. Damage increased by 90% here at the bottom. So there's some damage that goes away in some place, but then this one gains like even more. So it's very, very cool. And Paladin will got themselves a new ability. I don't know if they actually put the video in here, but there's a new ability that Paladin got, which is very, very, very cool. On its X skill. But here we have Execution Short, Execution Judgeness, and as well, these are the new identity skills, because we got ourselves some new stuff as well. And of course, the Paladin got 2 new identity skills to be able to be used during their mode. So either this is going to be the support one, it's going to give you an extra shield and that extra meter gen back, and this is what it looks like. It's a very simple skill. You can see it's right now a new Z skill at the bottom right there. So it has a 24-second cooldown. You can see it just gives a shield and it gives the meter back. Look at the meter going up, boom, even before it hits or anything. So you will always be able to cast this and not be able to be interrupted and lose that meter gen, which I think is very, very cool. And then, of course, we have the DPS one as well. It's a big sword, and this is what it looks like. It looks very cool. Boom, 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 boom. It's like a Thaymine attack people compared it to. So I think it looks very, very, very cool. Bop. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm playing DPS Paladin now. This looks fucking sick. And I agree. The DPS supports are eating pretty good. So yeah, that's some more changes as well. Then, of course, the Ark Passive changes. If you want to read them yourself, I have no clue what changed here. So have fun, compare, and maybe even complain in the comment section down below what you think is good or bad about these. I know there was some extra aura areas and stuff, but yeah, I don't know what really changed in this one. Then, of course, as well, the same for DPS Paladin. I have no clue. I never really played this, but it seems, of course, right now I got the new Judgment skill, which is pretty cool. I will scroll down a little bit more because there's a lot of... Actually, I can just go down like this. Still, no, it still doesn't fit. But yeah, this is, of course, all the things that changed to DPS Paladin. And let me scroll down a little bit more so you can read this whole thing. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that it, of course, got a new skill, which does a lot of damage. Okay, let's move over to the artist. Sadly, this one is not that nice and cleanly put inside of like these things right here, and it's just plain text. So I'm gonna try my best to explain it as best as possible. So, artists got now a spec buff, so that means if you're using spec, your buffs actually are gonna get a lot better coefficiency, which is nice. Before, artists had a really bad spec coefficiency, and they just didn't really want you to go spec at all. But that's been changed a little bit. You can see right now it's actually a big damage buff as well. You now always get status immunity on the base skill, which is very nice, and PvE damage up by 30%. Okay, so there's a lot of things that have been changed, and to keep it simple, there is some new orbs that artists can spawn, which is either going to give you a additional buff or cooldown refund for DPSs, which is very cool. And there's now brand power on the side notes, just like Bard. And there is going to be a refund bubble for artists themselves. So there's like 3 bubbles now on the field, or maybe, like, you know, it's kind of interesting. And the DPS artist gets a new bamboo skill, which is very cool. And as well, the T skill got a rework. So let's take a look right now at artists, because this best is just shown inside of videos. So you can see every time you're putting on bubbles, there's a chance to make this weird bubble. So this weird bubble can be picked up by artists themselves. Yes, so it's their own personal bubble, and if they pick this up, it gives 50% refund of a harmony orb upon use. So this is just probably just one orb gets 50% of their refunds, and up to 3 weird orbs can be in the field at the same time, and they last 60 seconds. So you can technically sort of save them for the right moment, which is a little bit weird. Like, why would you really want to save them? I don't know, I think it seems a bit weird and it looks a little bit finicky. I don't really like it that much myself, because this means like, oh, I'm gonna have to go out of my way to pick up that orb, and maybe, you know, it's gonna do something like and here we see the DPS buff orb. So let's not look at the super sus translation. Yes, 50% of the remaining cooldown of skill will be reduced to yourself and to party members within 24 meters. So I think that's pretty cool. So it just means that if you're picking up this orb, everyone gets a cooldown reduction. Interesting. So this could be good for a few classes. Some classes, of course, have less interested cooldown reduction on skills, but some classes, like, for example, in my opinion, the first one I can think about is Berserker, has really long base cooldowns. And if that means that, you know, you get 15% of that cooldown back, that seems very busted. I'm sorry. Like, this could seem, for some classes, very busted. For example, Blade doesn't care about this because Blade already got cooldown, but there's some classes out there that have really long cooldowns, and if that gets 15% refunded, that's actually really busted. I could read this wrong, of course, and it could be a wrong translation, but this seems very strong. So yeah, that's very interesting. So let's move on to some other things, of course, that have been changed. Heal can now be placed further, which is interesting. This is unchanged. This is the side note with the shield, so with the weird orbs, and this, of course, just that. Then DPS. So Rising Moon Fall now has been changed into the Bamboo Strike, which is just gonna be a big line of bamboo, bloop, like that. Looks pretty cool. But I don't really know how this is gonna work out. I think DPS Artist was the worst DPS class before, so I think it's a bit weird because we have literally no clue how this is gonna work out. Is it gonna be viable? Is it still gonna be shit? Is it gonna be really strong? I don't know. We knew that DPS Paladin was decent. I knew that DPS Bard was pretty good. I know that DPS Artist was trash. But with 30% buff, with new skills, new things on the side, it could be very good. But yeah, we'll have to see how it's going to work out. Other things, of course, skill changes. Hopper and lag of last hop has been decreased, which is very nice. Increased skill speed for Moon Sketch, very nice. Can now move and use skills a bit faster afterwards, which is nice. Bouncing tigers less, and like finally 2 target tripod will now increase to 100% damage flat, 120, sorry. One stroke increased skill speed, very new. So these are all like DPS skills and support skills combined. And that they get increased skill speed is very busted because Artist was a bit animation locked in DPS, especially even when I tried it in tier 3, because in tier 3 I used a lot of DPS Artist and we used all these skills, which is very nice that they all have increased skill speed and end lag, which is very good. So let's get AP buff on the tripod now moves to its base skill, grants more AP to self, which is pretty cool. My authority tripod no longer grants 50% crit rate. Okay. So this is a really big one, because what made DPS Artist good in tier 3 is it didn't need crit rate. Literally using your self buff and then using your whole rotation, which was definitely possible, it gave you 50% crit rate, which is crazy. Now it gives 35% crit hit damage. Oh, that's pretty bad. It's not certain if it's crit damage like Keen Blunt or crit like Crit Elixir, but losing 50% crit rate is really bad, because DPS Artist was really loving Full Swift, but now it needs to run a lot of crit to make up for that 50%. But let's see, maybe that's in Sunwell now. Base skill, tripods, crit damage again as well. So it gives a lot more crit damage, but you lose 50% crit rate. Ooh. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, DPS Artist, I think, for me, is the most iffy one. It could be very good. It could just be like a little bit of a mid crit build, like maybe like 60-70% crit rate, but it just gains a lot more crit damage, so a lot higher numbers. But yeah, I don't know. This one is a very iffy. I hope it's just gonna be good, but I think DPS Artist and Support Artist probably got the short end of the stick in this rework, in my opinion. It could be good. This cooldown thing could be very broken on certain classes, but I know that some classes literally do not care. Swift classes do not care about cooldown reductions. Like, of course, it's nice, but most of them do not care. Some DPS classes that don't care either, you know, like even the spec ones like Blade and stuff, where they get refund of cooldowns, they do not care about that 15% on the bubble you get, like, very not often. So yeah, like I said, DPS Artist and Support Artist, in my opinion, got the worst treatments, got some more weird crutches, some more weird conditions, and yeah, the DPS could be good, but I am not making one after reading this. For me, it will just be, I'm gonna buff my DPS Bard. It seems very, very, very good, very, very, very nice, and I'm excited to try it out myself. And like I said this to myself, I could see myself literally just swapping to a full DPS Bard, you know, Paladin roster after this, because sadly in this patch as well, they nerfed my Wild Soul. My Breaker is shit. Like Slayer could be good, but you know, I think DPS Bard could be cooler than that. So yeah, and this as well, some more of the trees, which we can now see. Actually, I didn't think they had this on the list. I don't know why they did two different sections, but here we go. We can now see the things added to the support and the DPS tree. So yeah, what do I think about this full rework? I don't know. I expected something a little bit better. It's nice that everyone, of course, got their push and PR immune and that kind of stuff on buffs. The buffs are better now if you hone your support better. And of course, some changes to some specs is nice, and some DPSs for supports got a bit better, got some extra skill here and there. But I don't know. I think I expected more. I'll be honest. I think I expected more, that there was a bit more fun and things, because they said like, oh, we're gonna make field support more fun. Does it feel more fun? Maybe. Artist seems a little bit fun. I don't think Paladin Sting feels fun. Like, okay, you get a shield, you get some mana back, like you, of course, you maybe can extend your aura. That's kind of fun. Bard got an extra buff. It's not that fun. It's fun that you don't use as much mana anymore, so that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I expected a bit more. But there we have it, guys. I'm sorry, that was a lot of rambling about the support update. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. Who do you think is the definite winner of this update? Who do you think is the definite loser? What stuff are you most excited for about this update? I'm just excited about seeing how good Bard is going to be, what my damage numbers are going to be before and after. Like, is my Z skill going to be absolutely trashed? Is it going to be better than before? It's going to be the same, but my other abilities do more. I'll have to see. Paladin looks interesting with their extended aura. Artist, we'll have to see what kind of combinations people cook up with that cooldown reduction. And yeah, the other stuff we'll just have to see when people do more experimenting, because of course it's just a few hours after this was released. So again, big shout out to, of course, everyone that made this document. You know, all these people right here. And I'll say thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. Hit that like button down below, guys. Subscribe if you're new. I'll make a video as well, hopefully, on all the new updates added to our version of Lost Ark. But the game's not up yet. We'll have to see in a few hours. So I'll say take care, love, bye. Thanks so much for watching. And as well, have a good day. Take care.